The war between the United Galactic Cooperative, UGC, and the Kaveri Empire had raged for 5 grueling years. The UGC had managed to push the Kaveri back to their own system, but at a steep cost. The UGC's member worlds had suffered extensive losses in both resources and lives. However, there was one notable exception: the Terrans. They had abstained from the conflict, citing dissatisfaction with the UGC's refusal to grant them a seat on the Council, despite the Terrans' advanced capabilities. As the tide began to turn in favor of the Kaveri, the UGC Council was besieged with urgent communications from their respective homeworlds. Each message was filled with dire warnings and desperate pleas for a resolution. An emergency council session was convened, and the air was thick with tension. Hours of heated debate yielded no tangible solutions. The situation seemed increasingly dire. In the midst of this chaos, a soft, almost hesitant voice broke through the clamor. "What about the Terrans?" The query came from Stas, a small, enigmatic Jillian council member with an unassuming demeanor. His question cut through the din, drawing curious glances from the other council members. A ripple of laughter swept through the chamber. The idea of involving the Terrans in such a critical matter seemed ludicrous to many. However, Stas remained composed, his gaze steady as he waited for the mirth to subside. "We have maintained good relations with the Terrans, engaged in trade, and to my knowledge, they have never acted deceitfully. I am personally acquainted with their world leader, and he is a man of considerable respect." Council member Tabor of the Eost system, known for his skepticism, interjected. "While it is true the Terrans do not seek to expand their territory, nor do they reproduce at the rate of the Kaveri, their constant internal conflicts are troubling. They seem to act more like unruly children than mature beings." A growl of agreement came from the Ferric council member. "Their continued internal strife is precisely why we have consistently denied them a council seat. Perhaps one day, when they demonstrate maturity and cooperation, they may be considered worthy of a place among us." Stas leaned forward, his green, cat-like eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Perhaps we should consider a different approach. What if we extend an olive branch and offer them a seat on the council? We could treat them as the young adults of our own houses." The council chamber erupted once more, this time in a cacophony of dissent and disbelief. The other council members jeered at the idea, dismissing it as impractical and naive. But Stas remained resolute. "We are losing the war," he declared once the noise had subsided. "The blockade is failing, and the Kaveri will soon break through. What do we have to lose by trying a new strategy?" Slowly, voices began to speak in favor of the proposal. The motion carried, and it was decided that Stas, given his personal connection with the Terran leader, would extend the offer of a council seat. Little did they know, this decision would change the course of the war and the very fabric of the galaxy. Stas tapped on his datapad, and a large council view screen flickered to life, establishing a connection. After a brief moment, the screen displayed the smiling face of the Terran leader. "Council member Stas, it's good to hear from you." The Terran leader greeted warmly. "Did you receive the Alaskan crab I sent for your daughter's wedding? I'm sorry I couldn't attend personally." "Yes, I received them, and they were delightful." "Thank you," Stas replied. "Unfortunately, my call is related to urgent matters of system politics." The Terran leader's expression grew serious as he listened intently to Stas outline the dire situation facing the UGC and the deteriorating status of the blockade. After a moment of contemplation, the Terran leader muted the communication. On the screen, he could be seen conferring with a high-ranking military officer adorned with an array of medals and insignia. When the Terran leader returned to the conversation, his face was set in a determined expression. 3 days. We will send our best." With that, the communication was abruptly terminated, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The abruptness of the Terran leader's response and the cryptic nature of his words left the council members both intrigued and unsettled. What did he mean by our best? What could the Terrans possibly do in just 3 days that the combined might of the UGC had failed to accomplish in 5 years of war? Speculation ran rampant, but no one could have predicted the sheer scale of the events that were about to unfold. The galaxy was on the brink of a paradigm shift, and the Terrans were the catalyst. In the coming days, the very foundation of interstellar politics would be shaken to its core. The UGC, the Kaveri, and every sentient being in the galaxy would soon learn the true extent of Terran capabilities and the depths of their resolve. 4 days later, the Kaveri Empire formally surrendered to the UGC. The Council and member worlds were left in stunned disbelief. It took an additional 4 days for the Council to receive and view the footage from the battle. The view screen in the Council chamber lit up with scenes from the recent conflict. A small, sleek black ship marked with the insignia of the Terran Space Marine Corps entered the Kaveri system above their homeworld. The screen split to reveal the ship's interior, where a heavily armored Marine was shown preparing for action. The Marine's demeanor was cold and focused, a stark contrast to the chaos of the situation. The footage continued as the Marine broadcast a message to the Kaveri, politely requesting their surrender. The response was a resounding refusal. The Marine ship then maneuvered to face the Kaveri homeworld, and a drop pod was launched from the ship's bow. Its speed was so intense that it evaded planetary defense systems. As the pod entered the atmosphere, it broke apart, and a single Marine was seen descending amidst the debris. The pod fragments scattered, creating a trail of destruction as they impacted the outskirts of the Kaveri capital. The Marine landed in the center of the capital amidst the wreckage of the pod. With methodical precision, the Marine began a relentless advance towards the palace. The Marine's path was marked by utter devastation. Buildings crumbled, streets were choked with debris, and the once grand capital was transformed into a charnel house. The Marine's progress was unstoppable, each step seeming to increase the scale of the destruction. The Kaveri House of Justice was obliterated, followed by the House of War. The streets overflowed with the blood of the fallen, a grim testament to the Marine's unyielding wrath. The Marine entered the palace the following morning. The footage showed scenes of carnage within the royal residence. The Kaveri Emperor, his family, and the palace staff lay dead, their bodies arranged in a ghastly tableau. The sight was a chilling confirmation of the Marine's lethal effectiveness. The Emperor's wife, holding her children, appeared on the screen, her expression one of fear and resignation as she formally surrendered. The UGC accepted the surrender, and their forces began landing to secure the transfer of power. The council chamber fell into a stunned silence as the footage played out. The council members were visibly shaken, their mouths agape as they watched the scenes of carnage. Finally, Council Speaker Lucia spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. One person did all that damage. One person brought the Kaveri to their knees. And she is Terran. Julian Stas was reading through the accompanying report, his hands trembling slightly. If I may, Speaker, the report specifies that it was a Terran female who accomplished this. The council members exchanged looks of disbelief. A female. The Terran women were known to be even smaller in stature than their male counterparts. How could one woman cause such destruction? Stas continued. The Terrans sent a strike team consisting of a husband and wife. However, the female was in the midst of her menstrual cycle. The husband refused to participate, stating, "I'm not dropping anywhere with that psycho while she's packing munitions." As a result, she went alone. The speaker's eyes widened in disbelief. A female, a Terran woman, but they're so small. How could she cause such destruction? Stas nodded solemnly. The report indicates that the Terrans' capability far exceeds what we had previously assumed. Their military might, even from a single individual, is formidable. The speaker turned to face the council members, his expression grave. What are we to do with this newfound knowledge of their military prowess? The implications are significant. Stas met the speaker's gaze with a serious expression. I would strongly advise against rescinding the offer of a council seat. We must consider the possibility that entering the Terrans could provoke them to deploy even greater forces. Imagine if they sent 2 of their warriors. The chamber fell into a contemplative silence, the weight of their decision pressing heavily upon them. The Terran demonstration had revealed a terrifying new dimension to their capabilities. The Council's response would shape the future of interstellar politics and warfare. As the meeting adjourned, the Council members dispersed, their thoughts consumed by the implications of the Terran display. The UGC had underestimated the Terrans, and the consequences of that miscalculation were now painfully evident. The galaxy would have to navigate a new era of diplomacy and power dynamics, with the Terrans firmly at the center of it all. The balance of power had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same again. In the span of just a few days, the Terrans had accomplished what the UGC had failed to do in 5 years of war. They had brought the mighty Kaveri Empire to its knees, and they had done it with a single warrior. The footage of the lone Terran female, striding through the ruins of the Kaveri capital, would be forever etched in the annals of galactic history. She had become a symbol of Terran might, a living embodiment of their indomitable spirit. The UGC had learned a valuable lesson, one that would guide their interactions with the Terrans for generations to come. Respect, caution, and a healthy dose of fear would be the cornerstones of their relationship. For the Terrans, this was just another day, another mission accomplished. They had proven their worth and secured their place among the stars. The galaxy was theirs for the taking, and they had barely even begun to flex their muscles. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the Terrans had arrived, and the universe would never be the same. In the weeks following the Terran intervention, the galaxy buzzed with activity. News of the Kaveri surrender spread like wildfire, and with it tales of the lone Terran warrior who had single-handedly brought an empire to its knees. On the Jillian homeworld, Stas found himself at the center of a media frenzy. As the council member who had suggested reaching out to the Terrans, he was hailed as a visionary by some and a traitor by others. In an interview with the Galactic News Network, Stas was asked about his thoughts on the Terrans' actions. "The Terrans are a complex species," he said, choosing his words carefully. "They have a capacity for great violence, yes, but also for great compassion. I believe that by extending the hand of friendship, we have set the stage for a new era of cooperation and understanding." Not everyone shared Stas's optimism. Many of the UGC member races were deeply unsettled by the Terran display of power. They had long viewed the Terrans as primitive and backwards, a species that had yet to outgrow its warlike tendencies. Now they were forced to confront the reality that the Terrans were not only technologically advanced, but also militarily superior. In the council chambers, debates raged over how to proceed. Some argued for a preemptive strike against the Terrans, fearing that they would turn their aggression towards the UGC next. Others called for a more diplomatic approach, suggesting that the UGC work to strengthen its ties with the Terrans and bring them into the fold as a full member of the galactic community. Amidst the chaos, the Terran ambassador arrived on the council station. She was a tall, imposing figure, with piercing blue eyes and a confident stride. As she took her seat at the council table, the room fell silent. On behalf of the Terran Federation, she began, her voice clear and strong. "I would like to express our gratitude for the trust and faith you have placed in us. We are honored to take our place among the great races of the galaxy and look forward to working together towards a brighter future for all." Her words were met with a mix of applause and nervous murmurs. The Terrans were here to stay, and the UGC would have to learn to work with them, whether they liked it or not. As the council meeting adjourned, Stas approached the Terran ambassador. "Welcome to the UGC," he said, extending his hand in the traditional Terran greeting. "I look forward to working with you." The ambassador took his hand, her grip firm and confident. "As do I, Councillor Stas. As do I." In the months that followed, the Terrans began to take a more active role in galactic affairs. They sent their ships to aid in humanitarian missions, their scientists to collaborate on research projects, and their diplomats to negotiate trade agreements and treaties. Slowly but surely, the initial fear and mistrust began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of respect and admiration. The Terrans were not the monsters that many had imagined them to be, but rather a complex and multifaceted species with much to offer the galaxy. Of course, there were still those who harbored resentment towards the Terrans, who saw their ascension as a threat to the established order. But as time passed and the benefits of Terran involvement became clear, even the most stubborn of critics were forced to admit that the galaxy was better off with the Terrans as allies than as enemies. And so, a new chapter in galactic history began, one marked by cooperation, innovation, and the ever-present reminder of the Terran capacity for both destruction and creation. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the Terrans would be at the forefront, shaping the destiny of the galaxy for generations to come. A year had passed since the Terrans took their seat on the Galactic Council. In that time, much had changed. The Terrans had proven themselves to be invaluable allies. Their technological prowess and military might a welcome addition to the UGC's resources, but it was not just their strength that had earned them respect. The Terrans had also shown a surprising capacity for diplomacy and cooperation. They had brokered peace deals between warring factions, provided aid to worlds in need, and shared their knowledge and expertise freely. Yet, for all their contributions, the Terrans remained an enigma. Their culture was so alien, their ways of thinking so foreign, that even their closest allies found them difficult to understand at times. This was a fact that Stas pondered as he sat in his office, reviewing reports from the latest council meeting. The Terrans had proposed a bold new initiative, a joint exploration mission into uncharted space, beyond the boundaries of the known galaxy. It was an exciting prospect, but also a daunting one. The risks were enormous, the challenges unknown. And yet, the Terrans seemed undaunted. They spoke of the mission with a sense of enthusiasm and determination that was infectious. As Stas mulled over the proposal, his thoughts drifted to the Terran ambassador. In the months since her arrival, she had become a familiar presence on the council station, her quick wit and sharp intellect earning her the respect and admiration of her peers. But there was something else about her, something that Stas couldn't quite put his finger on. A sense of purpose, perhaps, or a deep-seated resolve. Whatever it was clear that she represented the best of her species, their courage, their ingenuity, their unrelenting spirit. A chime at the door interrupted Stas's musings. "Enter," he called out, straightening in his seat. To his surprise, it was the Terran ambassador herself who stepped into his office. She was dressed in her usual crisp uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Ambassador," Stas greeted her, rising to his feet. "What can I do for you?" The ambassador smiled, a rare sight. "I wanted to thank you, Counselor Stas, for everything you've done, for believing in us even when others didn't." Stas felt a flush of pride. "It was the right thing to do," he said simply. "The galaxy is better off with the Terrans as part of it." The ambassador nodded, her expression turning serious. "But it's not just about us," she said. "It's about all of us. The UGC, the Terrans, every species in the galaxy. We're stronger together than we are apart." Stas considered her words. "You're right," he said at last. "But it won't be easy. There's still so much mistrust, so much fear." "Change never is," the ambassador replied. "But it's necessary. We have to keep pushing forward, keep exploring, keep learning from each other. That's the only way we'll survive." She paused, her gaze distant. "My people have a saying. The universe is vast and full of wonders. It's our duty to discover them, to push the boundaries of what's possible. That's what this mission is about. Not just for the Terrans, but for all of us." Stas felt a shiver run down his spine. The ambassador's words rang with a profound truth, a sense of destiny that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "I'll support the mission," he said, his voice firm. "And I'll do everything in my power to convince the others to do the same." The ambassador smiled again, a genuine, grateful smile. "Thank you, counselor. Together, we'll make history." As she turned to leave, Stas called out after her, "Ambassador, what do you think we'll find out there, in the uncharted reaches of space?" The ambassador paused at the door, her hand on the frame. "I don't know," she said, her voice soft. "But whatever it is, we'll face it together. Terrans and Jillians, UGC and all. As equals and as friends." With that, she was gone, leaving Stas alone with his thoughts and the weight of the galaxy's future on his shoulders. A new era had dawned, one full of promise and peril in equal measure. The Terrans had shown the way, but it would be up to all species to walk the path together. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but Stas knew that they would face them head-on, united in their determination to build a better future for all. The galaxy would never be the same, but perhaps, just perhaps, that was a good thing. The launch bay was a hive of activity, crews and technicians swarming over the sleek, silver ship that would carry the joint Terran-UGC expedition into the unknown. At the base of the boarding ramp, a small group had gathered to see the crew off. Council members, dignitaries, friends, and family, all had come to witness this historic moment. Stas stood among them, his heart swelling with pride as he watched the Terran ambassador and her team make their final preparations. They were a diverse group, scientists, soldiers, diplomats, but they were united in their purpose and their resolve. As the final checks were completed and the crew began to board, the ambassador paused at the foot of the ramp. She turned, her gaze sweeping over the assembled crowd, lingering for a moment on Stas. In that moment, a look of understanding passed between them, a recognition of all that had led to this moment and all that was yet to come. Then, with a nod and a smile, the ambassador turned and strode up the ramp, disappearing into the ship's interior. Moments later, the engines roared to life, the ship lifting off the launch pad in a blaze of light and sound. It rose higher and higher, until it was nothing more than a distant speck against the stars. Stas watched it go, a sense of awe and wonder filling his heart. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but with the Terrans by their side, he knew that the UGC would face whatever lay ahead with courage and determination. The future was unwritten, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same. The expedition would chart a new course, forge new alliances, and unlock the secrets of the cosmos. And through it all, the spirit of the Terrans would guide them, their bravery, their ingenuity, their unwavering commitment to discovery and progress. As the ship disappeared from view, Stas took a deep breath, his mind already racing with the possibilities of what lay ahead. A new chapter had begun, and the story of the galaxy was just beginning to unfold.